the science, you follow, sir?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, I'm following.
And nobody says this is wrong. This isn't living. It's bleeding.
I was thinking about the literatures of the world of a visionary nature that tend to be divided into three basic statements in terms of their form and content. On the one hand, we have epics that deal precisely with the representation of the battle of life.
Odyssey, and we have got the Odyssey, we've got the Mahabharata, we've got so many other books, all praising this thing.
And then others deal with what we call the journey of life. The Odyssey would be specifically related to that. There are many battles concerned within it in terms of confrontations between individuals. And then there's the notion of life as a fulfillment. But we hardly ever get to the question of the fulfillment, and when these are studied, they are studied in terms of a literary form. And the question that you've raised, which it seems to me would be a question that should be presented to the student in general.
And it is an authentic question. It's a question that must be put.
I was reflecting as you were speaking that in the classroom itself, it's taken for granted that this battle is what it is. It is to be related to with fortitude and so forth, but the question concerning it doesn't arise.
No, but to some young people it has arisen, but they go off at tangents.
Exactly.
Either commune or become a Hindu, you follow, go off to some ancient country and just disintegrate. Do nothing, think nothing, just live.
Which is really a lateral movement,
lateral,
not a vertical one.
That's right.
Into the question, yes.
So, it is a valid question, and it must have a valid answer. Not theoretical, but say, well, I will live that way. I will live without conflict. See what it means. I may be smothered. I question whether you'll be wiped out by society if you don't struggle. I've never struggled, personally. I've never thought of battling with myself or with somebody else. So, I think a question of that kind must not only be put verbally, but in the expression of that word, one must see if it is possible for each one of us to live that way, to live without a single conflict. That means without division. Conflict means division. Conflict means the battle of the opposites. Conflict means you and me, we and they, Americans, Russians, the division. Fragmentation, not only inwardly but outwardly. Where there is fragmentation, there must be battle. One fragment assuming the power and dominating the other fragments. So, an intelligent man, if there is such a person, has to find out a way of living which is not going to sleep, which is not just vegetating, which is not just escaping to some fanciful, mystical visions and all that stuff, but a way of living in daily life in which conflict of any kind has come to an end. It is possible. I mean, I have watched it all around me for the last 50 years. the battle going on around me. Spiritually, economically, socially, one class battling the other class. And the dictatorships, the fascists, the communists, the Nazis, you follow, sir?
Yes, I do.
All of them have their roots in this. Encouraging obedience, discouraging obedience.
Yes.
Imitating, conforming, obeying, all battle. So life has become a battle. And to me personally, to live that way is the most destructive, uncreative way of living. I won't live that way. I would rather disappear.
I think perhaps, and I wonder if you would agree, that some sort of confusion has arisen here in our minds when we identify ourselves with this battle in terms of your description of it. When we begin to think about the question, ought this to continue? And we have the image of battle before us. We tend to imagine to ourselves that what we're really talking about is the human equivalent of what is called nature read in tooth and claw.
Claw, right.
But if I'm following you correctly, this is a cardinal mistake, because in our previous conversations you have, at least for me, very, very clearly indicated that we must distinguish between fear and danger.
Yes, yes.
And the animals, in their own environment, act with clean and immediate dispatch in the presence of danger, whereas it seems we're making a mistake if we attempt to study what we call human conflict on the level of this analogy.
No.
Because the analogy, if I've understood you correctly, simply doesn't apply.
Doesn't, no.
But don't you agree that this tends to be
rather,
done?
sir, rather. We study the animal or the birds in order to understand man.
Right.
Whereas you can study man, which is yourself. You don't have to go to the animal to know man. So that is a really very important question, because I have, if I may talk a little about myself,
Please
watched
do.
it all. I watched it in India. The sannyasis, the monks, the gurus, the disciples, the politicians, all over the world. I happen to have, somehow I met them all. The writers, the famous people, the painters who are very well known. Either they have come, most of them have come to see me. And it is a sense of deep anxiety that if they don't struggle, there will be nothing. There will be failures. They will, that way of living is the only and the righteous way of living.
To drive oneself to be what is called productive.
Productive, progressive.
Progressive.
And we are taught this from childhood.
Oh, yes.
Our education is that. To battle not only with yourself, with your neighbor. And yet love the neighbor. It becomes too ridiculous. So, having stated that, is there a way of living without conflict? I say there is, obviously. Which is to understand the division, to understand the conflict, to see how fragmented we are, not try to integrate the fragments, which is impossible, but out of that perception, the action is entirely